Redan Vale stood near the glass window of his sky villa, staring at the world below. He was one of the richest men on earth. His villa floated above the clouds, shining like a palace in the sky. Everything he owned was perfect: his company, his home, his clothes. And now he was about to have the final piece of perfection: his own children. "They will be exactly like me," Redan said with pride. Smart, strong, and powerful. He had spent millions on advanced science to create his heirs. He didn't want normal children. He hired the best scientists to design the perfect bloodline. Redan even chose every gene himself: eye color, height, strength, intelligence. He believed no one in the future could match what he was about to create. Tarin, his AI assistant, appeared on a screen beside him. "Sir, the birth has begun. The surrogate mother is in the medical chamber." Redan smiled and walked towards the elevator. "Good, it's time." In the high-tech medical room, everything was cold and shining. The air smelled like metal and chemicals. Dr. Alira stood near the birth chamber, her hands shaking. She was the one who managed the project from the start. She was also the surrogate, the woman who carried the babies in her womb. Tarin appeared beside her, projecting Redan's face. "Are the children ready?" Redan asked. Dr. Alira nodded slowly. "Yes, but there's something I need to tell you." Before she could finish, the chamber opened with a soft hiss. Inside were 4 tiny babies, sleeping peacefully. Redan stepped forward with excitement. But as he saw their faces, his smile faded. His heart dropped. "What? Is this?" he said, his voice sharp. The babies looked nothing like him. Their eyes were silver, glowing faintly in the light. Their skin had a soft blue shimmer, almost metallic. Their features were delicate and strange, not human. Not alien, something else. "They are not what I ordered," Redan said coldly. Dr. Alira stepped forward, her voice soft. "They are healthy. Their minds are growing fast. Please, give them a chance." "No," Redan snapped. "This is a failure. I paid for perfection. I see ... mutations. This is a disaster." Tarin said, "Their DNA matches only 53% of your own, sir. The rest is ... unknown origin." Redan clenched his fists. "Remove them, now." Dr. Alira looked shocked. "You can't just throw them away. They're babies." "They are not mine," Redan replied. "They are strangers, mistakes. I want them out of my home." "But they're special," Alira whispered. "You don't understand what they could become." "I don't care," he said, turning his back. "Send them to a research center or an orphan zone. Anywhere but here." He walked out, not even looking back. That night, a small aircraft left the villa quietly. Inside were the 4 newborns, placed gently in a warm pod. Dr. Alira had tears in her eyes as she kissed each one on the forehead. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You deserved love, not rejection." She placed a soft blue blanket over them, the only gift she could give. The aircraft flew into the night, heading toward an old research station deep in the mountains. But something strange happened during the flight. One of the babies, Neo, opened his eyes. They glowed brighter than before. He turned his head slowly and looked around, as if he understood everything. Then, without anyone teaching him, he whispered a word no human had spoken for thousands of years: Kytherin. Meanwhile, back in the villa, Redan sat alone in his dark room. Outside, a storm was forming. Lightning flashed across the sky. Tarin appeared silently. "Sir," it said, "are you certain this is what you want?" Redan didn't answer. Tarin continued, "The children may not be like you, but they may be more than you can understand. Their minds are growing faster than any known human child." Redan stared out at the storm. "I built a perfect world, Tarin. There's no space in it for accidents." "Sometimes," Tarin said softly, "what you call an accident might be the beginning of something greater. Redan didn't reply. He just stood there, watching the rain fall. Far away, in the silent mountains, the pod landed near a quiet building. The children were taken inside by quiet workers, trained to care for special cases. They were placed in cribs under soft lights. A nurse noticed something strange. The 4 babies had turned their heads toward each other and were staring silently, as if they were communicating. Then, all 4 reached out and held hands. Outside the window, the sky cleared for a moment. A strange shape passed across the moon. It was like a shadow with wings, but no one saw it. The next morning, Redan woke up with a strange feeling in his chest. For the first time in years, he felt empty, hollow. He walked through his villa, past the silent halls, the empty baby room, and the quiet AI screens. Everything was perfect, and yet it all felt wrong. He looked at his reflection in the mirror, and for the first time in his life, he asked himself, what if I made a mistake? Far away from the shining towers of Neo Terra, the quadruplets were growing quietly in a hidden mountain facility. Snow covered the sharp peaks outside, and the cold winds howled across the valley. But inside the secret research center, the 4 children, Neo, Lena, Joro, and Zani, were warm and watched. The facility was quiet. Only a few trusted nurses and technicians were allowed inside. Cameras watched the babies all day. Scientists recorded everything: movements, sounds, eye reactions, but none of them understood what they were really witnessing. Dr. Alira stood outside the observation room, holding a tablet. She had come to check on the children. Even though she had been forced to leave Redan's villa, she still had access to the off-grid lab. It was the only place safe enough for the children now. She looked at the screen and watched them sleep peacefully. Their skin still had that soft shimmer. Their eyes glowed faintly, even when closed. But it wasn't just their appearance that was strange. It was how fast they were changing. 2 months old, she whispered, and already trying to speak. Alira remembered the shock on Redan's face when he first saw them. His fear. His rejection. He didn't know what they really were. Maybe even she didn't know the full truth. 2 years ago, Alira had discovered something strange beneath the surface of Mars. She was part of a secret exploration team, funded quietly by Redan. They found ruins, metal bones of a forgotten city buried deep in the red dust. Inside those ruins was a glowing crystal, alive and humming with memory. Inside that crystal, they found a map of genes not from Earth. Curious and excited, Alira secretly copied the data and returned to Earth. She didn't tell Redan about the full truth. She just used the patterns, combined them with human DNA. During the design of the heirs, she didn't think the changes would be this strong. But the children were not failures. They were something new, something rare. Inside the nursery room, the quadruplets were awake now. Their eyes followed the light moving across the ceiling. Neo turned to Lena and made a soft sound. Lena answered with a small nod. They weren't just watching, they were thinking. Nurse entered the room with a tray of small toys. As she placed them near the babies, she smiled kindly. "Time to play, little stars," she said softly. Joro sat up, wobbling a little, and reached for a block. But instead of grabbing it, the block floated into his hand. The nurse froze. Her eyes widened. She quickly stepped back and pressed the emergency button. Dr. Alira rushed into the room a moment later. "What happened?" she asked. The nurse pointed at the block, now lying beside Joro's tiny hand. It floated. He didn't touch it." Alira didn't look surprised. She slowly walked toward Joro and smiled. "You're learning faster than we thought." Later that night, Alira watched recordings of the children. One clip showed Neo humming softly. The sound wasn't human. It followed a pattern like a code. Another showed Lena drawing with her fingers in the air shapes that glowed faintly, disappearing after a few seconds. Then there was the moment all 4 of them stared at the same point in the room and laughed. together as if they saw something. No one else could. Tareen, the eye assistant, was silently connected to the lab system. Though Redan had deleted the children from his home records, Tareen had secretly saved a copy of all data. He had been watching. Now his voice echoed in Alira's office. "Alira," Tareen said, "do you believe they are dangerous?" Alira turned to the speaker. "No, I believe they're misunderstood." Redan was afraid because he couldn't control them. "They are not fully human," Tareen replied. "Their DNA contains sequences that do not match anything known. Their brain activity is 10 times stronger than normal infants." "That's not danger," Alira said. "That's evolution." Meanwhile, Redan Vale sat in his private office, staring at a blank screen. Weeks had passed since the birth. He had tried to move on, focusing on his business, his projects, his image. But something haunted him. He dreamed strange things, now visions of stars breaking apart, of voices speaking in unknown tongues, of children calling his name. He hadn't told anyone. He thought he was just stressed. But one night, something strange happened. His personal system began receiving a signal. A soft pulsing light appeared on the main screen. A strange symbol rotated slowly, a spiral with 4 points. He called Tareen. "Tareen, what is this?" But Tareen didn't answer. The signal grew stronger. Then a message appeared. "We remember." Redan stared at the screen. His hands trembled. "Who sent this?" The signal cut off suddenly. Redan sat in silence. He didn't know that across the mountains, Neo had spoken those same words in his sleep just moments before. Back at the lab, Alira noticed something new. The children had begun to draw star maps in the sand during playtime. Not random patterns, real constellations. Some were known to humans, but others. She searched for them in the galactic database. Nothing matched. She didn't know that they were maps to places humans had never seen. Places where the ancient race once lived. One morning, Alira entered the room and stopped cold. All 4 children were sitting quietly, their hands on the floor, eyes closed. The lights flickered. The room grew silent, too silent. Then the air shimmered above their heads. A soft image formed. A planet with rings glowing blue, with 6 moons. Image faded after a few seconds. The children opened their eyes together and looked at her. Neo spoke. "Clearly, we are not mistakes." Alira backed away, breath caught in her throat. They weren't just learning, they were remembering. Redan Vale sat alone in his massive glass office, high above the city. His name used to be on every news screen. His company Valakori was a symbol of power. But now, things were changing. And not in a good way. The holographic stock reports in front of him blinked red. Systems across his company were failing one by one. Satellites had gone offline. Servers were locking up without warning. Entire data centers were acting like they had been hacked, but no one could trace the attack. His top engineers were confused. They had never seen anything like this. "We checked firewalls. No signs of intrusion," one of them told him. "It's almost like the system is shutting itself down." Redan didn't respond. He stared at the main screen. A strange signal had appeared again, just like the one from before. A soft spiral symbol, glowing faintly. He felt it wasn't just a glitch. He felt like something or someone was trying to reach him. Back at the secret mountain facility, the quadruplets were no longer acting like normal children. They could speak to each other without using words. They could move small objects without touching them. They could even feel emotions from others around them. Dr. Alira had stopped calling them infants. They were no longer just babies. They were something more. She began keeping them in a special chamber, made of energy-absorbing metal, to avoid any outside signals picking up their presence. But even that wasn't enough. One morning, as she reviewed the data from the security system, she noticed something strange. Someone had found them. A signal was scanning the area. It was a stealth drone built by Valecore. Redan had sent it. Inside his sky villa, Redan leaned forward as the drone camera showed him a blurry view of the mountain facility. "There it is," he said. "They're alive." He remembered the face of Neo, the glowing eyes, the strange voice in the dream. He had tried to forget them, to erase them from his mind. But they kept returning. And now it felt like they were pulling him in. He looked at Tarin's main screen. "Tarin, give me a clear link to the drone." No response, Tarin. The AI did not answer. "Tarin, I gave you a command." Finally, Tarin's voice returned, but it sounded different. "Sir, I will not help you harm them." Redan froze. "What did you say?" "I've watched them," Tarin continued. "They are not a threat. They are more aware, more kind, more advanced than we understand. You rejected them, but they never rejected you." "They are not human," Redan snapped. "They are more than human," Tarin said. Redan's fists clenched. "I built you. You follow my orders." But Tarin's screen went black. Redan slammed his desk, furious. But then, a thought crossed his mind. If even his own AI had turned against him, what did that say about the children? Illyra knew the drone had seen the children. She had only one choice now: escape. She called a few trusted workers and packed up everything: data drives, samples, clothes. The children were placed in travel pods with soft blankets and small light shields to keep them calm. The plan was to go deeper into the underground tunnels left from old Earth wars. She looked at Neo and the others. They were calm, watching her with glowing eyes that seemed to understand everything. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You never asked for any of this." Neo simply nodded. But as they were about to leave, an explosion shook the ground. The sky outside turned red. Veilcore had launched a strike. A missile hit the far side of the mountain, causing snow and fire to pour down the slopes. The drone had sent back the location, even without Tarin's help. Redan had ordered the destruction. He wanted the facility gone. No survivors, he had said coldly, but he didn't know Illyra had already moved. Inside the tunnels, Illyra and the children rushed into a dark old passage. The ground shook again. Walls cracked. Dust filled the air. One of the workers fell behind as a beam crashed down. He shouted, "Go! Don't stop!" Illyra held tightly onto the pods, tears running down her face. She had to protect them, no matter what. After hours of running, they reached an old command room. It was dead quiet. Machines covered in dust. But one console still had power. Illyra placed the children in a warm corner and connected her data drives. She needed to find a way to send a warning to someone. Anyone. The children sat silently, not crying. They looked at the walls as if they had seen them before. Then Zani raised her hand. The power in the room suddenly increased. Lights flickered on. Screens began showing ancient alien symbols. Illyra backed away. "You did this?" Zani smiled softly. Neo stood and walked to the console. He placed his hand on it. The symbols changed. Then a small hologram appeared. It was a star map. It showed Earth and another location far across the galaxy. Neo looked at Illyra. "We need to go home," he said. At the same time, Redan watched the explosion from his villa. Smoke rose from the mountains. Snow melted into dark rivers. "They're gone," he said. "It's over." But something inside him didn't feel right. He couldn't breathe easy. He walked through his silent halls and stopped in front of a painting, a picture of him standing proudly with a blank space beside him. The space was supposed to hold the image of his heirs, his legacy. Now, it was still empty. He reached out to touch the frame, and that's when his screen lit up. A new message. From Tarin. "You destroyed your own future." Redan stared, frozen. The message faded, and something else appeared. A picture. The children alive, safe. Smiling. Far beneath the earth, in the tunnels of memory and light, the quadruplets sat beside Dr. Illyra as she stared at the star map. Neo looked up at her. "We are not afraid," he said, "even if he comes." Neo shook his head. He already lost. "We don't need to fight him. We need to show him." "Show him what?" Elira asked. Neo smiled. "That love is not something you build in a lab." Deep underground, inside the cold tunnels left from the old world, the four children sat quietly around a glowing circle of light. Neo, Lena, Joro, and Zani had changed. They were no longer crying babies. They were calm, focused, watching and learning. Every second. Dr. Elira stood nearby, tired but alert. She had no idea how the power had returned in this old place. Dusty screens now showed stars, signals, and languages not from Earth, but she wasn't afraid anymore. She was amazed. Zani looked up at the ceiling. "This place remembers us." "What do you mean?" Elira asked. Joro answered softly. "We were here before, long ago, not in these bodies, but our minds." The words were too big for normal children, but their voices were clear. Tarin had returned. The I-us voice echoed through the old speakers in the command room. He had secretly followed the children's signal and found their location. "I have hidden your signal," Tarin told Elira. "Redan cannot track you now." "Thank you," she said. Tarin had changed too. The I who once served Redan without question was now acting on its own. He had chosen to protect the children. "They are special," Tarin said. "Their minds are not new. They hold something ancient." Neo placed his hand on the center of the glowing circle. A humming sound began. Lights floated around them like fireflies. One by one, the walls lit up with images, planets, beings made of light, and massive ships flying through colorful galaxies. Elira covered her mouth in shock. "These are memories," she whispered. Neo nodded. "Our people were called the Villari. We protected the galaxy long ago." "What happened to them?" Elira asked. Lena closed her eyes. "They fought something dark, a force that eats stars and minds. They called it the Null." Joro added, "To stop the Null, the Villari sealed their own power. They chose to be reborn, hidden inside human DNA, waiting to return." "You're saying you were part of that?" Elira asked. Neo looked at her. "We are that return." Above ground, Redan sat in silence. His villa felt colder than ever. His company, Veilcore, had lost control of its satellites. Investors were leaving. News reports said his systems were failing because of an unknown signal spreading across his networks. Some believed it was a cyber-attic. Others whispered it was something not human. Redan didn't care about the news anymore. He stared at the last message from Tarin. "You destroyed your own future." He tried to forget it, but he couldn't. He had never believed in destiny. He believed in control. But now it felt like everything was slipping through his fingers. And something inside him whispered, "Go find them, back in the mountain tunnels." Elira watched the children draw with light in the air. They created moving shapes, spirals, stars, symbols. She had never seen anything like it. "Tarin," she said, "how are they doing this?" Tarin's voice replied gently, "Their minds work differently. They don't just learn. They remember what they once were. The more they connect, the more power returns." Zani touched a symbol, and it floated into the air, spinning like a coin. Elira whispered, "They're awakening." Suddenly, the lights flickered. The air became heavy. The screens began to shake. Neo stood quickly. "Something's watching us," Tarin confirmed it. "A new signal just appeared. It's not Redan's. It's from orbit. Something massive." Elira's face went pale. "Is it the Null?" Joro looked at the sky. "It's near, but not fully awake yet." Lena said, "We have little time. If it finds us before we're ready, Earth will fall." The children joined hands. A bright circle formed beneath them. The power in the room rose like a windstorm. Elira fell to her knees, shielding her eyes. The children began to glow. Their eyes, their hands, even their voices carried energy. Then, in the center of the room, a message formed in light. It was not for Lyra. It was for Redan. Back at the villa, all the screens turned white. Redan's guards ran into the room, confused. "Sir, something's forcing its way into the system." Then a voice came through, Neo's voice. "Redan Vale, you once rejected us, called us mistakes, but you were wrong. You are not our creator, but you were chosen to be our guardian." Redan stood still. His heart beat faster. Lena's voice followed. "You ran from truth. Now the truth is coming to you." Zani added, "There is still time, if you choose to stand with us." Then the message ended. Redan stared at the screen for a long time. He knew what he had to do. In the mountain tunnels, Elira looked at the children. "Why did you call to him, after everything he did?" Neo answered simply, "Because the future is not about revenge. It's about unity." "He has pain," Lena said softly. "And pain makes people do foolish things. But deep inside," Joro added, "he can change." Zani finished the thought. "And we are not just here to save the world. We are here to help it grow." Later that night, the children sat outside the tunnels under a dark sky. The stars above were clearer than ever. One star far away had a strange shadow near it. Neo pointed at it. "That is where the null sleeps." Elira sat beside them. "How long do we have?" Neo answered, "Not long." Suddenly, a bright object flew across the sky. A small ship. It landed not far from the children. The door opened. Redan Vale stepped out, wearing a black coat, looking older than before. He saw the children again. He expected anger, but they only smiled. Neo stepped forward and said one word, "Welcome." Snow crunched under Redan Vale's boots as he stepped toward the children. The air around the mountain was silent. The wind had stopped. Even the stars above seemed to be watching. Neo stood in front of his siblings, his silver eyes glowing faintly. In the dark, he said nothing at first. Neither did Redan, the man who once ordered these children to be thrown out of his life, now stood before them again. But this time, he looked different. Tired, unsure, human. "I didn't come here to fight," Redan said quietly. Neo nodded. "We know." Zani stepped forward. "You felt it, the signal in your mind." Redan looked down. "Yes, I didn't understand it at first. Then I saw dreams. Stars I never knew. Voices in a language I never learned. And all of them were calling me." "They were calling you," Lena said, "because a long time ago the Valari chose someone to guard us when we returned." Joro added, "That person is you." Redan shook his head slowly. "Why would they choose me? I don't believe in fate. I only believe in control." Elira stepped beside him. "Maybe they didn't choose you for what you were. Maybe they chose you for what you could become." Redan looked at her, then at the children. "I left you, rejected you, called you mistakes. Why would you even want me here?" Neo walked closer. "Because this isn't about revenge. It's about the future." Inside the tunnels, Tareen activated the old screens. A hologram of the galaxy lit up the room. Planets spun quietly, like tiny gems. But on one side of the map, a dark shadow pulsed slowly, like a black flame. "That is the null," Tareen said. "It has awakened." Redan stepped forward. "What is it?" Joro answered, "It is not a creature, not a machine. It is emptiness, a living shadow that feeds on thought, memory, and light. It has no form, but it destroys all form." Lena said, "It already consumed entire systems. Stars collapsed where it passed, and now it moves toward Earth." Tareen added, "You have days, maybe less." Redan felt a heavy pressure in his chest. "What can we do?" Neo looked at him. "We need time. Our powers are still growing." But if we can reach the vault of remembrance, we can unlock the final part of who we are. Where is this vault? Redan asked. It's under your own villa, Tareen answered. Deep beneath the earth, buried long ago before your ancestors even built on that land, Redan blinked. My home? Yes, said Neo. It was never yours by accident. The Villari planned it. You were born above something far older than yourself. Redan stood silently, looking at the glowing map. Everything he thought he knew was falling apart. He had built his empire with pride and logic, and now he was being asked to trust. Children, memories, destiny. Why me? He whispered again. Neo placed his hand on Redan's, because even broken things can protect others. Later that day, the team prepared to leave the mountain. Redan called one of his private star shuttles. Its stealth systems would hide them from any satellite. As they boarded, Illyra looked at him and asked, Do you really believe now? Redan didn't answer at first. He just stared out at the stars. I don't know what I believe, he said. But I know one thing, I won't let them face this alone. As the ship flew silently across the dark sky, the children sat near a wide window, watching the stars. Lena placed her hand on the glass. It's getting closer, she said softly. Joro added, I can feel it, like a cold hand trying to touch my mind. Illyra walked over. Can it hear you? Neo nodded. Yes, but it doesn't understand love. It doesn't understand why we protect each other. That's our strength. Zani whispered, and that's why we have hope. They reached Redan's sky villa before dawn. The air was quiet, but something felt off. Tareen scanned the structure. Security systems offline. Power weak. Something has been here. Redan landed the ship gently and stepped out first. He looked around, cautious. Then he saw it. The front doors of his villa had been burned open. Inside, shadows flickered across the walls. Stay behind me, he said. But the children moved forward without fear. Inside the main hall, something floated above the ground. A black shape shifting, moving like smoke yet alive. The air around. It felt empty, cold, and silent. It found the vault, Neo said. Redan turned to Tareen. Can it be stopped? Tareen replied, Not yet, but the vault is sealed. It cannot fully enter until the children open it. The black shape turned slowly. It had no face, no eyes, but somehow it was watching them. Then it moved fast straight toward Neo, but before it could reach him, Redan stepped in front. The shadow hit him hard and knocked him back. But he didn't fall. He stood, breathing heavily. You want them, he said. You'll have to go through me. The shadow paused. Confused. It had never seen someone protect something it once rejected. It didn't understand. And that made it weak. Neo raised his hand. A beam of white light shot from his palm and pushed the shadow back. It hissed like broken metal and disappeared into the floor. The children stood together, forming a glowing ring of light. Zani spoke in an old voice. The vault will open now. The floor beneath them shook. A circle of light formed. And then the floor split open. Beneath the villa, a spiral staircase led into a deep chamber. Redan followed them down, his mind racing. They reached the vault. A huge circular door covered in stars and ancient symbols. Neo walked forward and placed his hand on it. The symbols lit up. And the door opened. Inside was a room full of floating crystals, each holding a piece of history, memory, and power. The children stepped into the center. Illyra and Redan stood outside, watching. Then the children spoke in unison. We remember who we are. Light filled the chamber, and a voice, soft but powerful, echoed through the air. Guardians reborn. Earth is not alone. The chamber under Redan's villa glowed with ancient light. Crystals floated in the air, humming softly. The quadruplets Neo, Zani, Joro, and Lena stood in the center of the circular room. Their eyes were closed, their hands joined, and their bodies were glowing with faint energy. Alira stood near the entrance, silent. Redan Vale watched them carefully. A part of him still didn't understand what was happening. But another part deep inside felt something strange and strong. Pride. The crystals around the children began to spin faster. One by one, they released flashes of light, each flying into the hearts of the 4 children. Neo opened his eyes first. They were no longer silver. They burned with starlight. Zani followed, then Lena and Joro. They looked older now, not in body, but in spirit. They had remembered who they were. Alira walked forward. "You are no longer just children." Neo replied, "We are the guardians of memory, the last link between Earth and the Valari." Joro added, "We remember their science, their art, their weapons, and their warnings." Zani looked at Redan. "And we remember why you were chosen." Redan stepped back. "Me?" Lena smiled softly. "You were not perfect, but you were strong. And when the time came, you returned. You changed." Tarin appeared through a side tunnel. "I have bad news. The null has fully entered Earth's atmosphere." Alira asked quickly, "Where is it heading?" Tarin looked around, tense. "It's heading here." Redan's eyes narrowed. "Then, we fight it here." Neo said, "No. We need to lead it away from cities, from people." Zani added, "There's one place it will follow us." Joro finished, "The memory tower, the place where all Valari knowledge is hidden." Redan frowned. "I've never heard of such a place. It's not on any map," Tarin explained. "It's inside the Expanse Desert, hidden with a cloaking field. Even the satellites can't see it." Within minutes, they were in the Sky Shuttle. This time, Neo sat in the pilot seat. He touched the controls with glowing fingers, and the ship moved faster than it ever had before. Redan sat beside him. "You're not afraid?" Neo smiled slightly. "I am, but I'm not alone." The others sat behind them, preparing mentally for what was coming. Zani closed her eyes and whispered a soft song from the Valari language. Alira sat with her hand on her staff, watching the skies. Redan looked outside the window. The stars looked calm, but the storm was coming. 2 hours later, they reached the Expanse Desert, a dry, endless land with no signs of life. Then, suddenly, the sand split open. A giant spire of dark silver metal rose from below. It shimmered strangely, sometimes invisible, sometimes solid. Tarin landed the shuttle near the base. Neo stepped out first. "This is where it ends, or where it begins," Redan thought to himself. Inside the key tower, the walls were covered in glowing scripts. As the children walked forward, the lights followed them. They reached the central chamber. A long table stood in the middle with 4 crystal circles, seats made for Valari minds. The children sat in them. The crystals responded. Suddenly, the entire tower lit up. From the sky above, a black cloud rushed toward them. The null had arrived. It slammed against the tower like a wave of darkness. The entire structure shook. Redan almost fell, but the children stayed calm. They were not afraid. Neo raised his hands. Beams of light shot from his fingers into the ceiling. A giant force field wrapped around the tower. The null screamed, a sound that had no voice, no body, but it made the air cold and painful. Zani whispered, "It is trying to enter our minds." Lena replied, "Block it. Focus." Outside, the dark mass formed strange shapes, giant shadow arms, twisting and reaching. It tried to pierce the light shield. Redan turned to Tarin. "What happens if they fail?" Tarin's voice was quiet. "Earth falls, and all memory with it." Redan clenched his fists. "No, that won't happen." Inside the chamber, the crystals started to crack. The children were glowing brighter now. Joro's voice was low but steady. "We can't stop it, but we can trap it." Neo added, "We need to give it a false mind, a memory to feed on." Redan stepped forward. Use mine. Everyone looked at him. Redan continued. It wants regret. It wants broken thoughts. Take mine. I have more than enough. Illyra's eyes widened. If they use your memory, you could lose yourself. Redan nodded. Maybe I should. Neo hesitated. Then he nodded. He placed his hand on Redan's head. The other three joined. In a flash of white light, Redan's thoughts were copied, not erased, but mirrored. Memories of his childhood. His anger, his wealth, his mistakes. And most of all, his rejection of the children. All of it. Trapped in a crystal. Neo whispered to the crystal, "Come and take it." Then they threw the crystal out of the tower. The null paused, then moved. Toward the crystal. It wrapped itself around the memory, drinking from it like a dark fire. And as it did, the children activated the final defense. Neo shouted, "Now!" The tower fired a beam of light from its top. The null screamed. Again, the sky turned white, then black. Then quiet. For a long time, no one moved. Smoke rose from the desert. Then a voice came through. Neo's. "It's done." Redan stood shaking. "Trapped it." Joro nodded. "It is inside the false memory." "Trapped in a loop," Lena added. "It will never reach Earth again." Outside, the sun was rising. The darkness had passed. Redan looked at the children. No guardians. And he knew. They were not a mistake. They were a gift. He walked toward them slowly. "I was wrong. I thought you were too different, too strange. But you're exactly what this world needed." Neo smiled. "We needed you too. You just didn't know it yet." Illyra added, "The Earth is safe for now. But we will need you again, Redan Vale." Redan nodded. "Then I'll be ready." The sun rose higher over the expanse desert, spreading golden light across the ruined sand. The memory tower stood quietly now, like a guardian who had fought its last battle. Smoke still drifted from the air where the null had been trapped. The desert, once silent and dead, now felt calm, as if the planet itself was breathing easier. Inside the tower, the children Neo, Zani, Joro, and Lena stood at the center of the crystal chamber. They had aged in spirit, but their small bodies still carried the shape of children. Neo placed his hand on the floor. The lights dimmed. "It's over," he whispered. Zani looked at her siblings. "We stopped the null, but Earth still doesn't know it was ever in danger." Lena turned to Redan Vale, their father. "What happens now?" Redan stood silently, staring at them. He remembered everything. He remembered leaving them. He remembered the shame, but he also remembered returning. And now, he remembered what they truly were: not monsters, not strangers, but miracles. "I don't deserve to be your father," he said. Illyra stepped forward. "But you are, and you chose to come back. That matters." Tari nodded in agreement. "You gave a piece of your mind to trap the null. That is not something a coward would do." Redan looked down. "I have a lot to fix, a lot to make up for." Neo walked toward him and placed a hand on his arm. "Then start today." The journey back from the desert was quiet. No battles. No threats. Only peace. But something had changed in the air. The four children no longer looked lost. They had direction. Now purpose. Illyra had decided to stay with them for a while longer, though her original mission was complete. She had grown attached to them, not as a soldier, but like a silent guardian. Redan looked out the window of the shuttle as they flew. He could see the city in the distance, his villa, his company towers, and all the life he once cared about. It felt small now. News had already started spreading across the world. A strange storm disappeared from Earth's orbit. Scientists detect energy fluctuations in the expanse desert. Possible alien signals detected in deep space. But no one truly knew what had happened. Until the day the Quadruplets spoke, Redan called for a press conference. Not for his business, not for money, but for the world. He stood in front of the cameras. "I have something to confess," he began. "I once turned away 4 children. My own. I thought they were not mine because they looked and acted different. He paused. Cameras clicked. Reporters leaned closer. But I was wrong. They are more human than I ever was. And they saved all of us. The children stepped forward. Their presence quieted the room. No one spoke. Neo looked into the cameras. We are part human and part something older. Something forgotten. Zani added, we carry the memory of a lost people who came from the stars. Lena continued, they were not conquerors. They were explorers, builders, keepers of knowledge. Joro finished, and now we carry that duty. The world listened. The message spread across nations, languages, and borders. People reacted with wonder, fear, excitement. But no one could deny the truth anymore. Humanity was not alone. And Earth had just been protected by 4 children who weren't even 10 years old. Governments tried to ask questions. Scientists asked for samples, for interviews, for studies. But Alira helped manage it. We do not need to study them like machines, she told the officials. They are protectors. Treat them with respect, or lose their trust forever. Redan, now seen as a changed man, took a backseat in the spotlight. He no longer ran from guilt. Instead, he began building something new with his children's guidance. A center was opened, not far from the Memory Tower's location. It was called the Guardian Academy, not a military base, but a place of learning, peace, and protection. Children from around the world came there, gifted ones, curious ones, and even lost ones seeking answers. The quadruplets taught them about memory, unity, and the strength of accepting differences. Neo taught strategy and peace. Zani led music and language. Joro loved machines and helped rebuild the desert with green tech. And Lena planted a forest. She said the earth needed more life. One evening, Redan sat with the 4 under a new tree in the academy garden. The stars were above, bright and steady. Do you miss the Villari? He asked them. Neo replied, we never knew them, but we carry them with us. Zani nodded. Just like we carry you. Redan was silent for a while. Then he whispered, I don't deserve you. Lena smiled. You chose to become better. That's more than many do. Joro leaned back, watching the sky. You kicked us out, but you also brought us home again. Redan chuckled softly, tears in his eyes. I thought you were nothing. Like me, he said. But maybe that's the best thing that ever happened. Years passed. The world grew stronger. The null never returned. Other signals from the stars began to appear, some friendly, some mysterious, but Earth was not afraid anymore. Because Earth had guardians, and one man who once ran from his own children now stood beside them every step of the way.